We're going to be a little bit interactive today. We're celebrating Sukkot. Today is day 2 of Sukkot, so we all should be pretty familiar with it, I imagine. So what are the mitzvot of Sukkot? What are we commanded to do? Shout it out. Welcoming of guests, okay? What are the big ones? What are the Torah, the Deoraita, the mitzvot from the Torah that we have for Sukkot? Sitting in the sukkah, great. What else? Building a sukkah, okay. These are all very sukkah related. Lulav and etrog. And what do we do with the lulav and etrog? We shake it, right? So I want you to take your chumash out, page 525. I know I told you could put them way before. But rather than just reading it to you, I thought we'd read it together maybe. Page 525, if you're joining us at home in the book of Leviticus, Vayikra, chapter 23, verse 40. Anyone want to read it to us in either the Hebrew or the English? I heard here, L'kaktem, you shall take them. Does it tell us to wave them? It says to take them. Right? You shall take, on the first day you shall take the product of the hadar trees, the branches of the palm trees, the boughs of leafy trees, the willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. What's the commandment in there? So to take them, and, Mitch, I heard it from you. Rejoicing. It is a biblical commandment, a deoraita from the Torah, the highest level of commandment, right? It's like the Canadian terminology, but the Constitution, and then the next level of laws, right? The deoraita, the biblical commandments are our Constitution, and we can think of the laws that Parliament passes, or Congress for anyone watching from the U.S. Right? Those are the rabbinic commandments. But the highest level are the ones that are in the Torah. And it is a biblical deoraita from the Torah commandment, usamachtem, to be joyful, lifnei Adonai Elohecha, to be joyful before the Lord your God, not for a moment, but Shivat Yamim, 7 days you will be joyful before the Lord your God. It's a long time to be happy. Has anyone ever been happy for an entire day straight of just joy, let alone 7 days of that? It's a difficult thing to do because why? There are things in this world that make us not happy. It is difficult to be joyous for 7 days straight, 168 hours. How rare would that be? But it gets a little more complicated. We're going to look at chapter of Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 14. So it's on page 817. Who should be happy is the question I want to ask. And if you look, V'samachta b'chagecha, you shall rejoice in thy feast, you and your son and your daughter and your manservant and your maidservant and the Levite and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are within your gates. So not just for us to be happy, but our families, our children. Not just us, but our servants, the help, right? People in society that aren't necessarily doing very well. The widow, the poor, the orphan, the stranger. Everybody in the community has to be happy. Not just the rich, not just the wealthy or the well-off, but the poor, the bereaved, the orphan, the widow. They should be joyful too, it tells us. It's a very difficult mitzvah. It's easy to think people sitting on top of the world, right, on their yachts or wherever else, maybe they're happy for 7 days straight. But the working class, the poor, the widow, the bereaved, they're supposed to be happy and joyous for 7 days. It's a difficult mitzvah. And why is it hard to be happy for 7 days straight? All you have to do is open a newspaper or turn on the TV or look at your phone in the news feed and whatever's popping up on CNN or see TV or anywhere else, there are things in this world that are sad. There are things in this world that make it difficult to be joyous. But we're supposed to feel nothing but joy. If you go a little bit further down the page, right at the very end of verse 15, V'hayita ach sameach. Only joy. You will only be happy. It's a lot to try to do. You can put your chumash away if you'd like now. So the question is, how do we do it? How do we make Sukkot, this holiday, a holiday of pure joy? There's a Hasidic story about Rabbi Pinchas. And Rabbi Pinchas was known for having a very joyous Sukkot. Everyone loved going to visit him in his sukkah and celebrating the holidays with him, or really any holiday. But Rabbi Pinchas wanted to study Torah more. And he found it distracting that there were always people dropping by on Shabbat afternoons when he wanted to sit and read and study and learn, or when he was sitting in his sukkah trying to relax. And again, people would come by to tell stories or jokes or to bring food or simply to ask him questions because he was, a well-known rabbi of his day. So he prayed one year that people would leave him alone, that he could have a peaceful holiday, and he could have time to sit and study Torah, right? What he thought he really loved, what he thought was going to bring him joy. And as the story goes, he very quickly got lonely. He very quickly got bored, and he very quickly realized he wasn't very happy sitting alone in his sukkah. So he prayed that the Ushpizin, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, that King David and Moses, that they would come and they would visit him and he would have company in his sukkah. And miraculously, right, because he was such a great rabbi, they all appeared. He could see them. But they stood outside and would not come in. They refused to enter, they said, a place where the whole community was not welcome. And so he changed his prayers, and people came back into his sukkah, and they celebrated, and they were joyful. And it's a cute little Hasidic story, but it has an important lesson. He recognized that what he thought would bring him happiness wasn't necessarily what was going to bring him joy. Instead, what brought him joy was when he appreciated the life that he had. But he was only able to appreciate that life once he didn't have it anymore. Once it was missing, the things in his life that he was taking for granted. And it's the fundamental flaw of humanity is that we too often don't realize what we've had until it is gone. So I spoke about happiness and joy a bit on Yom Kippur, but it really is an essential part of Sukkot. You saw it yourselves in the Torah. Be happy. It is a mitzvah of this holiday. We have our three major pilgrimage festivals, the Shlosh Regalim, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Passover is about physical freedom, leaving slavery, leaving bondage. Shavuot is about intellectual freedom. It's about breaking free from false idols, false gods, and beliefs. We receive the Torah. And Sukkot is spiritual freedom. It's breaking free from our own self-worship, from our egos. It's finding true joy in life. And even though we just started the new year in the Jewish calendar of holidays, it actually goes in that order. We start with our physical freedom with Passover. It's the first of the Shalosh Regalim. Shavuot, we receive the Torah chronologically. And we break ourselves free of these false gods and false beliefs. But Sukkot is the ultimate level of that freedom. We can break away from our self-worship, from our egos, where we can experience that sense of joy and happiness that comes with that. Gratitude is not just seeing the blessings in one's life. It requires recognizing that none of us is ultimately solely responsible for the blessings in our life, the things that we have. No matter who we are, no matter how hard we've worked, and I'm not negating that people work very hard to get to the places that they are. But the truth is, there's no such thing as an entirely self-made person. Nobody's ever pulled themselves up from their bootstraps without some help from others, some luck, some opportunity. It takes hard work, it takes grit, it takes all of these things to raise yourself up in society and in the world, but it takes a little bit something else extra. And having that gratitude, that appreciation for it, is really what Sukkot is about. We dwell in the Sukkah because it's about us not just appreciating the nice things that we have the rest of the year. We leave our homes and we sit outside and we're exposed a little bit to the cold air or cool air or frigid air, depending on where you live exactly. We expose ourselves to nature, to the rain, to the stars. We take ourselves out of the comforts of our homes, but it's also about appreciating all that goes into that. It reminds us of the time when we wandered in the desert, when our ancestors truly were reliant on God and on each other for their protection. Their food, their water was given through God's loving kindness. Their safety and security came from Hashem, and it also came from having each other, this community to rely on. So the answer then is that today it's difficult to fulfill that commandment, to be happy, to be joyous for 7 days straight. But it's not impossible. And we can move a bit closer. We can learn to appreciate what we have. If we can recognize that we are lucky for the blessings in our life, and not just be chasing after something new, but be thankful for the things we have. Because joy, true joy, is the result of that. So as we offer our Musaf prayers, I ask that in place of the sacrifices that were offered for thanks on these holidays in the ancient temple, as we offer our Musaf prayers instead, we think about the blessings in our lives, the things that bring us joy, the things we are thankful for. And we offer that praise to God for all those things in our life. Chag Sameach.